I think Jayson Tatum has been, and Jaylen Brown, two guys we talked about a lot in the last couple of weeks.
Really
especially
throwing a
Jaylen Brown.
big goose egg for most of, I mean, I don't want to
Yeah,
criticize them too much. I don't want to mean a goose egg. That's too harsh. But
no,
neither player, really showing the same performance they did to close out last season. Young players looking to find their way. Now, other than injury, though, they've gotten regular minutes in every single game, even if Jaylen did move to the bench. But I think the deal with the fully healthy scenario and Baines coming back is some of these guys are going to have to get used to some nights off, some DNPs, coach's decision. They're going to have to deal with reduced minutes, less than, maybe around the 5 or 6 mark, even though they've been getting this high, teens, even in the low 20s during this stretch. And, that can definitely mess with people's, kind of rhythm. And Jaylen and Jayson, though, that's not their excuse. This is a whole different path of conversation, whereas guys like Terry could really suffer that.
Yeah, you're right. You feel like those two guys shouldn't fall off the face of the earth. And I think that the gains they've made, particularly Jaylen, I've just been really impressed with the way that Jaylen has, whether he's talking about the Houston game or he has really, I think, thrust himself into that position of, he's even making plays. I thought last night, we're recording this, here on Tuesday. I thought in that game against Brooklyn was really a good evidentiary piece to show why Jaylen Brown has grown and why Jaylen Brown has become a better player. Because early part of this year, he was missing. I mean, he missed shots in that game, easy shots that he's been hitting for the last 2 weeks, shots that make you say he's getting it. He's missing those shots. And he was missing those shots early part of the year. But the early part of the year, he'd shut down and he'd be a complete waste. This game, he didn't become a waste. He stayed engaged, stayed involved, drove, and found guys. He was dishing as he's coming into the basket. And that's that evolutionary growth that Jaylen has to show. He was making plays. Jayson Tatum making plays off the bounce. I mean, those types of things just make this team really grow. And I think we've seen Tatum take a little bit more of that playmaking role. And it really does help this whole offense kind of grow. Instead of trying to, dribble to create his own shot, he's driving and creating, and which will eventually then open up those lanes for him to drive, score, or drive and get to the line. I still want to see more of that, but I think both guys are starting to see that development in creating opportunities for others. That's, to me, them doing that makes it a little bit easier to move to a guy like Mook to the bench. Mook's been great. Don't want to throw him away. But all I'm saying is he still feels to me like the piece that they need to be able to do without.
Well, they have to because of the whole contractual thing. But just to kind of, let's hit that when we come back from the commercial break in a second. But to wrap everything you just said up in a nice little bow, in the offseason, we heard about all the things that Tatum and Brown were doing to improve their game. And I'm sure that passing was somewhat part of that. But in sort of those offseason workouts where you're not really playing a lot of 5-on-5 with guys necessarily, they're all at the NBA level playing at the NBA pace, right? You're looking at more of like adding things to your individual game. And so I think part of what might have happened was when they were first coming out of the season, they're trying to work those individual pieces of their game into a bigger team puzzle. And what you just said is younger guys especially fall into that trap because there's still so much they're trying to do to establish their own individual identity. I think what you're saying is they bought into the team thing. They're making plays for other players. And that's really a much more mature development aspect that is coming to bear for these young players. And I think if that continues, you're right. This team will only benefit because they're playing like guys that are in their late 20s instead of their early 20s or 19s. So there you go.